Hello everybody. Today I wanted to go over a couple of videos that Heliocentric, I don't know how you want to say that, did on, of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses, or at least one of them in particular, which is, of course, his latest one from, at this point in time, on the 16th of August, 2024, is 3 weeks ago.
This is the third service of theirs that I have been to in the past 10 days. I went to two different Kingdom Halls on two different Sunday mornings, and then tonight I went to one of their Tuesday night services. I want to express my frustration at how absolutely wonderful these people are. Now, when it comes to cults like the Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm usually a little bit more reserved.
You don't say.
Because it crosses a line where it's not just like you have a certain belief structure that might be false or that I don't agree with, but you believe something that might be harming yourself and others. Now, I have a little bit of cognitive dissonance because the people here are just so wonderful. And as I was driving home, just thinking about, the dozen or so little conversations and interactions that I had with people, I got kind of mad because I'm like, damn it, you all believe some really not okay things. And I wish that a lot of people in my life were as nice as y'all. Like, there are just some real assholes in my life that I wish were half as nice and lovely as these people. Now, the people here were so nice that it gives me a little bit of pause when it comes to the cost-benefit ratio. Like that one person that you hate at your school or your gym? Like, would you trade him being an asshole for him, now being a proselyte of a fringe sect? And sometimes I'm just tempted to say yes, damn it. And I have to start this video by just commending these people, because for all of the faults that I'm about to point out, they've got it down pat.
And actually, the first video from Heliocentric as well is perfect to be able to express, explain, and prove this exact point. Like, I could talk about it on either video, because he mentions it a lot. But in that first video, actually probably was better for this topic because of the fact that he was talking about how fake it felt. Like, it's so overbearingly nice, but like everybody's acting and talking the same, almost robotically. It feels very hollow. Like they're just required to do it by corporate, and if they don't do it, they get turned into Soylent Green.
Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell them, Silent Breed is people!
I can compare it to the first thing, and the main thing I keep comparing it to is the Truman Show. Because in almost every possible way, Jehovah's Witnessers are monotons. They literally are cookie cutter, copy pasted monotons that have been molded by the manipulation and the indoctrination of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is basically your Vatican if you're a Catholic, or high council, if you want to just almost go somewhat fanciful, in terms of like D&D type of stuff. It's very much like the high council. It's the top of the top. It's like the presidency in government. The kings and queens. In this case, they are effectively in place of Jesus, just a random guy who had beliefs and said words, and people believed every word he said and hung on it and became religious about him and worshipped him, even though he was just a random dude who was really good with wood. Probably more ways than one. Ultimately, they are very much cookie cutters because of that. Think of almost any scene in any part of the Truman Show. How do they always talk? What is their cadence? What is their tempo? How do they speak? How do they move? What is their mannerisms and their facial expressions? How do they address you and each other? What are the words they all say? How do they say them? When do they say them? When do they go to bed? When do they get up? When do they go to work? When do they come home? When do they have dinner? When do they go to church? Alongside of course, not just the personalities of the people being these copy-pasted cookie-cutter clones, it's also the same with the housing in the Truman Show. And the housing in this case for Jehovah's Witnesses is, of course, their churches. I'm going to keep saying that because I know it pisses them off. Because kingdom halls are churches. That's what they are. Although technically it could piss off all religion by saying that church originally in Hebrew actually meant cirke. And cirke means circus. And circuses back in the day, because if you go even further back in the etymology, the original Hebrew actually meant brothel. Fun fact for you. And then brothel, because that's where all the vagabonds and the misfits and the miscreants and the rebels and the heathens and hedonists and everything would congregate, is at circuses back then. It wasn't like with all the carnies and the fucking weird animal abuses, forcing them to make tricks and live in cages way too small for them, and everything else that we know it for now. And all these, for some reason, obsession with peanuts, because I don't know, little games or anything like that. It was actually for all those misfits. Later it became also a freak show and all this other stuff like that. So they still exploited people, but instead it became more corporatized, so then it became more exploitative, where now these people were still there, but now they were almost controlled by, for profitability, these higher ups, because it was already becoming corporatized. Well, originally it meant brothel because the main people who were there were prostitutes. It's actually hilariously ironic. That's a side tangent, a derailment, but I did that very intentionally because I thought it was funny, and I know it pisses off almost anybody who's religious, specifically in the Christendom world, because, like, how dare you say this? It means house of worship. It means place of worship. Now, didn't mean that even 1,000 years ago, but you have fun with that. Anyway, it's a church. That's what kingdom halls are. But they're always cookie cutter. They look identical, no matter what. They're always exactly the same. Everywhere you go, every single kingdom hall you pass by, they are exactly the same. There's no differences. Sure, they can be different in the terms of their size, and therefore maybe a layout or capacity. Maybe some have way bigger parking lots, so thus lots of land, than the others. Some might be higher capacity, so a lot bigger than the others. But the point is, they're still identical. They're still exactly the same. So just like the Truman Show in that sense, it's not just the place of worship, the church, the kingdom hall, that is identical. They're even landscaped identically for some reason. But you also have the universality of everybody universally acts, talks, walks, moves the exact same way. Specifically and especially to newbies and outsiders, because they want to keep up appearances. That's one of the biggest, most important things to the governing body. It's still been that way for a very long time. It's all about keeping up appearances. But, of course, in modern day, the further time goes along, the more obsessed they are with keeping up this certain exacting appearance. They have to keep up appearances. This is why they always obsess over what you're wearing and your hairstyle and, you know, how you talk, how you move, how you speak, how you address people, so on and so forth, because they are very meticulous and OCD about this is absolute like a dictatorship. They dictate you have to present yourself in this exact manner and way. If you deviate at all, you will be pulled back by the elders and ridiculed for this. Disciplined, because you cannot do this because it reflects badly on the congregation, or reflects badly on your brothers and sisters. It reflects badly on us as an organization. They're obsessed with appearance, and it's this exacting manicured way of being. It's a cookie cutter, copy paste blueprint. That's what it is. It's literally the Truman Show incarnate when it comes down to real life. It exists in so many different ways and parts of our society, collectively as a whole, around the world, and always has, and unfortunately probably always will. But for fuck's sake, do the Jehovah's Witnesses take it and run with it. It's almost as if the Truman Show is made as a sort of parallel / parody of Jehovah's Witnesses. There is a good reason why people compare Jehovah's Witnesses to the Borg from Star Trek, because that's yet another perfect pop culture reference to make and compare between Jehovah's Witnesses and something in pop culture. If you think about how the Borg works and operates, especially their little satellites, so, you know, the people that they've infected, they go around trying to convert and contaminate other people or other beings. That is how they operate. Very robotic. Everybody's the same. And they almost move robotically, let alone everything else. Like, you probably, if you just looked, you probably notice everybody's leaning the same way, everybody's talking the same way, same sound, same pitch, same cadence, same tone, same everything else. They're moving the same way, they're leaning the same way, they're gesturing the same way, they're smiling the same way, they're tilting their heads the same way, they're moving them the same way, because they are trying to get their hooks in you. That is why it comes off as creepy to a lot of people, let alone fake. I don't think any Jehovah's Witness is truly happy, except for maybe, again, like I've mentioned in this video right here, one of the people we knew named Ralph. He was not your typical Jehovah's Witness. He was the perfect guy for us kids when we were young. You know, we were true kids, you know, 12 and under, to be able to talk with and confide in, because he would never tell anybody. And he'd tell you the honest truth, which is that it doesn't matter if you believe in this or not. It doesn't matter if you believe in anything. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. Yeah, it makes him a little bit sad, but at the same time, he totally understood it. And he empathized. He genuinely empathized with it. He not just sympathized, he empathized. He heartfelt, he understood. And the most important thing for him, he wanted people, especially as kids, to understand that no, the religion is not everything. It is not the single most important thing that you should hold as the most important thing in your life, nor is a belief in a figure like a god, a deity. You know, what's most important is to be yourself, is to be free-spirited, is to figure out who you are and be a true free person and find out what you believe and what you can take to heart and what makes sense to you and what feels right to you and just and ethical and moral and, you know, what you find fun and everything else. And if it doesn't align with what other people want or expect or say you're supposed to feel, then so be it. You should be content with yourself, not with, you know, seeking approval from some people up in New York fucking state. It used to be New York City. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that that's why he had such a childhood spirit. He was in his 90s. He was closing in on 100. He had diabetes. He had a lot of different, you know, health issues. And he was a pain in the ass to his wife because he was basically an ornery, conniving little child, which was awesome. I mean, think about having your free-spirited, youthful spirit intact, being in a cult like that, being actually genuinely believing and dedicated to the positive aspects of the Bible and everything else, and I suppose to the cult doctrine, or at least to the people, but being able to be that free spirit, childlike spirit, even in his late 90s, for being a guiding light for anybody who needed it. I mean, it didn't matter if you were older than 12. There was a few, you know, mid and late teenagers that would confide in him too. Because I think I've even seen an adult growing up that actually confided in him occasionally. They could tell he was like not comfortable with and not sure if he really bought into or believed any of it. But he understood that, like, if that got out, you know, he'd probably get his ass kicked out and disfellowshipped and of course shunned and everything else, because how dare you? Which goes into this whole manipulation video I did, which is how they keep you in. It's also how they get you in. Convince you that they're great people, they only care, they're a family, and all this other stuff. When in reality, they're not, because they're not friends and they're not family. If they're going to shun you and they're going to shut you out because you don't follow their doctrines, right? You're not part of their religion. You're not part of their cult. You're not part of their group. You don't believe in their doctrine. You don't believe, or maybe you have problems with it and you question it. Now you're an apostate. You're a worldly person influenced by Satan and his demons. You're poisoning their spirituality. So you're disfellowshipping, you're ostracizing, you're called apostate, which is like the dirtiest word in all of Jehovah's Witnessdom. And it's just like, you know, you're just absolutely torn to shreds. No true family, friends or literally anybody who genuinely cares for you is gonna fucking dare do that. They wouldn't even have that thought for a fucking second. They're gonna stick by your side anyway. They're still gonna treat you as they always did. They're still gonna be friends. They're still gonna be family. They're still gonna give a fuck about you. They still love the hell out of you. And they're not gonna fucking have even a moment's hesitation to allow that thought to enter their mind of shutting you out and permanently abandoning you. Because that's what it is. It is literal abandonment. And it's defamation of character and slanderous. And it's just like, they're literally actively destroying you. You already were struggling. You already were fucking terrified. That's why a lot of people never actually leave. They want to leave, but they remain permanently PMO, physically in, mentally out, because they are horrified of the ramifications of being ostracized, outcast, and permanently abandoned by these people, specifically their family and those they actually give a fuck about, because they don't want to fucking lose their family and their friends permanently. But that's the thing, is you have to realize that's abuse. If that's really genuinely what you fear, because you think they're going to do that, and maybe they do, if you finally get the balls to step up and say, you know what, no, I don't believe in this, I am going to leave, I'll take that risk. If you're going to fucking permanently outcast me and abandon me cold because I became apparently an apostate, I became this evil, horrible, satanic individual because I dared question, let alone dared realize I didn't believe in this shit, or I have problems with it, and you're going to permanently do that to me? Okay, fine. But at least if you have the balls to do that and you do it, you're getting arguably the most valuable lesson and most valuable anything you possibly can out of being in and now leaving the Cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. The only thing that's the most educational and the most important, long-term, permanently impactful thing when you leave this cult is when they do that to you. Because you will find out who really is your family and who really is your friends. And if literally all of them won't touch you, unless, of course, as an elder or something, trying to bring you back into the little flock, the 144,000, the unnumbered ones, whatever the fuck they want to brand it, because they keep fucking switching it lately. That proves that not a single one of those people ever actually loved you or ever actually gave a fuck about you. That's the brutal truth, and it's gonna hurt like hell. It's gonna be like driving a fucking molten fucking dagger with barbs all over it directly through your heart while it still beats inside of your body, because you do care. But they prove they don't. They don't give a fuck about you. And that's why they're willing to abandon you instantly, without hesitation. Because in their minds, genuinely, it's the right thing to do. There's arguably nothing more abusive than exactly that. It doesn't matter how you grow up, whether it's involved or not, and religion, governance, thus politics, or literally anything, you can experience that, where you will be completely abandoned and ostracized and treated like shit suddenly by somebody you thought you knew. You're able to not only better handle it later, you're tougher for it, but you also realize and learn very quickly, you know, what that kind of manipulation and what that kind of like sociopathy is, where they're masquerading, they're pretending to be somebody with you that they aren't. They're pretending to be your great friend who's always stuck by your side and will never would let anything get in the way. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, they go through a breakup or a divorce and you're still friends with both of that person and the other in that was in that relationship. Well, guess what? Now you're suddenly a horrible, evil person because how dare you not do what I want you to, because I have animosity for this person because I had a bad experience, even though you didn't, and therefore I expect you to mimic me and absolutely permanently ban them for your life and act like they are a total piece of shit and just bash them with me. If you don't do that, you're a horrible piece of shit. You know, just because you're hurt by, you know, that person was hurt by that person, all of a sudden they expect everyone else to just completely ostracize and abandon that person cold and act like they are the most evil person in the world. That happens all the time. And you get your ass abandoned too. You get slandered and treated like shit if you do not follow and fall in line. Lick those boots. And that is like the worst thing ever. But it's so common in the modern era. That's just another way that happens. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, it's still a form of shunning, basically. And public defamation, slander. defamation of character and all this other stuff, because it's abusive, because they never really gave a fuck about you. Because if they did, so you learn to pick up on those cues, and you learn to read that energy, that vibration of those people. You learn to pick up on it in a room. You learn to pick up on it off of people. You learn pretty quickly how these traits work, what they talk and act and sound like versus what they actually are. And so in the long run, you actually shrink the size of the inner circle of your life that you're willing to have, because you realize really quickly, because you learned your lesson, that all that's bullshit. And it's beautiful, because you likely aren't going to fall victim to it again. You might do it multiple times, but eventually you're going to realize and learn those other cues and realize it's not worth the risk. I'm not gonna touch that, you're not gonna be disrespectful or mean to the people, but you're just gonna be like, whether keep your distance or whatever else, just like, yeah, okay, because is it worth that, And in the long run, again, when you do leave, or you are ostracized after them treating you so nice to try to get the hooks in you, maybe they failed to do so, and you just leave them alone after a while. Or you say something that they disapprove of, and obviously it might negatively impact you long term. But it doesn't have to be permanent. Again, this is why in multiple of my Jehovah's Witness videos now, I have encouraged people to get therapy. That's the PSA part every fucking time of these videos, is to get therapy, because I'm going to keep mentioning it because it's super important, and I do not ever hear or see anybody in the XJW community mentioning it, which is wild to me. But for the love of God, people, there is literally so many of us who, whether you're baptized or not, I wasn't, I was just born into the cult, but whether you're baptized or not, it's still indoctrination, you still experience it, and you're still only allowed to be around those people. So you're still fucked. It's arguably worse when you're a kid that's born into it growing up, whether you get baptized or not. It's arguably more damaging for us, because it adds that like extra second layer of bullshit, right? And trauma. But get that therapy, because there's so many of us that are coming out, they're talking about it, they're going to therapy, they're expressing this, and you would not believe the amount of people, especially here in the US. I can't speak for the rest of the world. I hope it's happening elsewhere, but especially here in the US, there is so many of us that keep going to therapy and mentioning this, and it being like a major, if not the main source of our traumas that we're going to therapy for, that they literally, there's conventions and big groups of therapists that are remarking about this and writing about it, to the extent that they are literally actively in the moment, at least here in the US, trying to develop a specific specialized form of therapy for literally us, people getting out of cults and high control groups, especially that of, and specifically, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and secondarily, Mormonism, so LDS, and of course, Scientology. They're consistently compared to each other all the time, especially by people who leave these cults, because all three are, in fact, cults. And the more people that leave all of them, the more people more of us that are finding how well we can relate to each other, because of how wildly similar the actual rules and doctrines are, along with the treatment that we get. Like, there is something so sinister about them that is all identical to each other. And that says a hell of a lot in itself, to think that you can compare Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, aka Latter-day Saints, and Scientology all together, to where people who leave them all collectively literally all have pretty much identical traumas and identical stories to each other. Meaning they are literally basically one and the same. Get help. Get the therapy, reach out, get therapy, because it's such an important thing. And I'm just going to refer you to this video here, once again, of mine, because it's really important to listen to the PSA if you want the full detail on all of this therapy-based stuff. I myself am going through therapy right now, and my therapist has mentioned it to me. My mom's therapist has mentioned it to her, of how common it is right now for even them to be hearing people mentioning the cult and eventually saying Jehovah's Witnesses or J-dubs. I was born JW. I was a part of the JWs. I escaped the Jehovah's Witnesses. Whatever else. That says a lot. I definitely highly recommend you check out at least that PSA portion, if not the entire video, if you have not yet. If you have not seen or watched The Truman Show, by the way, great movie. Jim Carrey is the star in it. Check it out. And especially if you're familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, their doctrine, how they act, how they talk, walk, everything else, please, if you have not seen it, or even if you have, but maybe you haven't in a while and you have never really made the connection mentally between the two, the Jehovah's Witnesses and The Truman Show, please do yourself the favor. Humor me. Watch the damn movie almost like a study in a way. So that then you can compare notes with Jehovah's Witnesses, how they act, talk, walk, and all that. Because I'm telling you right now, I guarantee it, you're going to see a wild amount of parallels and clones. And you're going to see exactly what I pointed out in this video emphasized when you watch that movie. You're going to be like, I hate this, but he has a point. All right. Now, I'm going to go and jump off a fucking cliff and get hit by a truck, if you'll excuse me. It's my duty.